Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. This research study was part of a project which was conducted in the Security for You research group at the University of South Africa. The 8 authors worked together on the project, and today myself, Adele Veiga, and Mathias, Mujinga, and Emilia Mwim will be presenting the study to you. Cybersecurity skill challenges and a shortage of cybersecurity employees are experienced globally by organizations. It is estimated that there is a shortage of approximately 3.12 million cybersecurity professionals across the globe. The ISC found in their study that the cybersecurity skills workforce must be expanded by at least 89% to address the skills shortage. It's also found that the African workforce will be expanding to represent at least 15% of the world's working population, with approximately 60% of Africa's population being under the age of 25 by 2030. CEOs in Africa are concerned about the availability of key skills required on the continent, and Africa has a very unique challenge in this regard. One way to decrease the current cybersecurity skills shortage is through education, and the need for cybersecurity education within the higher education sector specifically. In this study, we found that South Africa has no current cybersecurity degrees offered at tertiary institutions. And it is the responsibility then to build the cybersecurity profession, which is partly that of the education system and the education institutions in South Africa. While there is no universal cybersecurity curriculum, there is thus a need for a holistic view of this and to understand what contents to consider for such guidelines. The aim of this study was to propose a reference point for a holistic academic cybersecurity curriculum for universities and other higher education institutions. We applied a scoping literature review approach where we considered academic databases for proposed cybersecurity skills curricula and to identify the modules which are covered in these curricula. Secondly, also the cybersecurity curricula offered by top universities. And thirdly, cybersecurity curriculum frameworks and guidelines. The success of technologies to secure cyberspace depends on professionals with the appropriate cybersecurity-related skills, knowledge, and abilities for implementation. The cybersecurity skills gap has been recognized as a national or global vulnerability requiring a solution with qualified cybersecurity professionals. A recent cybersecurity jobs report indicated that at least 3.5 million cybersecurity professionals are required for 2021 to fill vacant positions. With the increased cybersecurity attacks and a shortage of cybersecurity skills, there is thus a need for cybersecurity education. This research study was conducted from a South African context and therefore some background. We've experienced a number of data breaches in the last few years. Of significance is the data breach in 2017, where 60 million South Africans' personal data was affected. This leak was linked to a holding company for real estate agencies with weak security on their web server. We also experienced a security breach in 2020 by Experian in South Africa, which compromised personal information of about 24 million South Africans. This information was then also available on the dark web. From a regulatory stance, our Data Protection Act, which is the Protection of Personal Information Act, commenced last year, and the grace period just elapsed on the 1st of July this year, with all companies now that have to comply with the regulation. In this piece of regulation, there is also a section about security, which is Section 7 of the Act. The government have also drafted the National Cybersecurity Policy Framework, but this framework has not yet been implemented. The scoping literature review approach was applied. Firstly, cybersecurity curricula in academic publications was searched using the PRISMA method. cybersecurity curricula of universities in South Africa and globally was searched using the Times Higher Education University ranking system, and best practice and industry frameworks for cybersecurity curricula was also included.
As one of the research methodology in this paper, a systematic review was conducted using a Prisma approach. The search was conducted using a keyword, cybersecurity curriculum. However, to ensure that the search did not exclude any important paper, part of the search term cybersecurity was used in two ways. One, cybersecurity as one word, and the cybersecurity as two separate words. The search was restricted to 5 years, between 2015 to 2020, and 3 databases were the focus databases: ACM, IEEE, and Scopus. The reviewers applied the following process in order to arrive at the 7 papers that were included in the review. 3 of the 7 papers included in the review either considered cybersecurity curriculum framework solely in the development of cybersecurity curricula, or considered the framework in conjunction with other framework in the cybersecurity curricula development. After engaging on a systematic review, Fevitsky and co-authors were able to leverage the 2017 cybersecurity curriculum framework in order to come up with their common topics in the cybersecurity curricula they developed. The importance of considering focus areas and exemplar programs in designing a new cybersecurity curricula was emphasized by Bell and Odisru in 2019. As such, the cybersecurity degree by Northwest Missouri State University considered the knowledge areas of cybersecurity framework, the criteria by Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, and the input from industry stakeholders before coming up with their bachelor degrees. The security curriculum developed by Barkley and Swalewski also took into consideration the CSEC 2017 framework, among other guidelines, from IEEE Computer Society in order to develop their security courses. The other records included in the review which did not consider CSEC framework include the Master Program in Cybersecurity at Auckland University. According to the authors, the program considered working group framework on innovation and technology in computer science education as a case study. The working group developed a competency-based framework to assist in the design and implementation of computer programs.
While the previous studies considered frameworks from a teaching and learning perspective, Jones et al. 2018 considered knowledge, skills, abilities, the KSA model, in order to prepare graduates for careers based on 2 aspects. The first one, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, the NICE framework. This framework consists of 32 cybersecurity skills and knowledge in 7 categories. Secondly, the KSAs that should be prioritized when developing cybersecurity curricula related to 4 aspects: networks, vulnerabilities, programming, and communication skills. The other study by Swain and Biswau 2019 reported on the design and development of a cybersecurity concentration course for undergraduate students. This was done at South Carolina State University. The program is based on the ABET accreditation. In this case, 15% of the coursework was devoted to cybersecurity. This program was based on existing curricula and discussions with industry and scholars. The embedded program course includes Introduction to Cybersecurity, Computer Forensics, Cryptography and Network Security, Application and Data Security with Privacy, Management of Information Security, and Cybersecurity Capstone Project. While some curriculum models are based on established frameworks, other case studies provide approaches based on alternative perspectives. For instance, Santos Pereira and Mendes 2017 proposed a flexible cybersecurity graduate levels curriculum comprising the following areas: prevention, e.g. penetration testing, ethical hacking, then detection, that includes intrusion detection systems, and response, that includes digital forensics and incident response. Other areas proposed include cultural and global standardization, legal issues, awareness, counter forensics, and the theory of computer forensics. To summarize our systematic literature review, 7 core modules that cross-cut these curriculum were identified, and this is from more than 34 unique modules that were identified. The 7 modules are networks, cryptography, cybersecurity, forensics, programming, human aspects, and ethical hacking.
Undergraduate programs that are based solely on cybersecurity or incorporate an aspect of it were included in the scope. There were no undergraduate programs in South African universities that focus solely on cybersecurity. However, undergraduate programs in the universities had modules that covered aspects of cybersecurity. Since a complete undergraduate course in cybersecurity was not found, it was concluded that South African universities do not have a formal undergraduate course in cybersecurity, and hence the scope was expanded to universities globally. 3 websites were used to identify international universities for inclusion on the scope. The researchers searched for 3rd and 4th year bachelor degrees in cybersecurity that are taught in English, and the results returned are listed on the screen. These results were then sorted by relevance and using the Time Higher Education University ranking. The cybersecurity programs of the top 5 highly ranked universities were then reviewed. It was found that cybersecurity or security was the module that was most represented, with 4 of the university curricula including it. This was followed by forensics, programming, networks, and mathematics and cybercrime, which were then included in at least 3 of these universities. There were 18 unique modules across the 5 universities. Cybersecurity best practices and frameworks are often used by organizations to guide them to improve their cybersecurity. It's also used by universities to develop educational resources and curricula. In this study, we consulted a number of documents, such as the Cybersecurity Curricula Guidelines and frameworks of the ISSP, for example, and NIST. These were then reviewed to identify a list of cybersecurity topics across all these documents and to consolidate it in a single list to be used that can be mapped to the modules that we've identified as part of the scoping literature review. 72 unique topics were identified across the best practices and frameworks included in the scope. Depicted on the slide are the different topics and you can see that some of them occurred more frequently than others. The aim of this paper was to prepare a reference point for a cybersecurity curriculum, and as such, the information from the literature reviews were then used to compile this curriculum. The modules derived from the 7 literature review papers, as well as the modules from the 5 universities, were consolidated to compute a unique list of 49 modules. The occurrence of each of these modules across the 7 literature papers and the 5 university curriculums were counted to determine the number of instances that each of these modules occurred across a curricula. The modules that occurred the most frequently were considered as the core or critical modules for inclusion in the cybersecurity curriculum and were defined as the Tier 1 modules. The framework topics from the cybersecurity topics derived from the best practices were then mapped to the modules and was matched to indicate the occurrence of these modules across the various best practice standards. Business continuity management, disaster recovery, security innovation, service delivery, and third-party management did not map to any of the modules, and they were thus added as possible additional modules. And this resulted then in the list of 53 possible modules. The second tier was Tier 2, which would be the fundamental modules for the cybersecurity curriculum, and Tier 3 being the elective modules. Table 7 in the paper presents the reference point for a cybersecurity curriculum. We've only included a snapshot of the table on the slide, representing some of the Tier 1 modules. You will see in the first column the modules that occurred the most frequently, which would have been networks, cryptography, cybersecurity, forensics, and programming. The column A represents the literature review papers that it occurred in, and column B represents the university curriculums that were considered, giving then, for example, for networks, a total of 9 instances where this module occurred. In the framework mapping column, the concepts that were depicted in Table 6, the security-related topics of the best practices and industry frameworks are presented, with an X indicated in C if networks could be mapped to any of those topics, indicating then for all of those topics an occurrence of 1, being then a total of 10 for the networks module, showing then that 10 was the module that occurred the most frequently, and it was also possible to map it to the frameworks. In conclusion, the development of a new cybersecurity curriculum will most likely have to include the core modules like networks, ethical hacking, and cyber attacks. It might also include specific specialization areas and target a specific group of students using fundamental and elective modules. It's envisaged that the proposed strategy can be used by academic institutions as a point of departure towards defining their cybersecurity curriculum, or to map it for completeness, and also provide organizations with a point of reference for the cybersecurity skills they need. The literature review is useful in assisting further research, and the aggregation and statistical support may be used by some when justifying and proposing new or enhanced cybersecurity curriculum. Future research will focus on qualitative and quantitative input to map the needs of industry for further improvement. This then brings us to the end of this presentation of the study, and we would gladly answer questions that you might have about the study. Thank you.